Yeah, I want to start it right here. This is a Tumblr post that is one of numerous things that my creative partner and life partner, Ertz shared with me
Big up
for this
Nelly.
topic. Big ups, right? Big ups, Nelly. This is a Tumblr post that went super viral a while back. No offense, but I think a lot of us, me included, don't actually want romantic love as badly as we think, and really are just lonely and crave a closeness and intimacy that feels out of reach in friendships because of society's emphasis on marriage and the nuclear family. So we project that into the never-ending search for a perfect love and a soulmate, when really we all just want to mean something to some. Foreign thoughts.
Oh yeah, no, it sings to me. I've said a lot of the times that we put a lot of onus and emphasis on romantic partnerships, and to the dismay of any other arrangement of coupling that could exist. That includes friendship. That's actually one of my favorite references in regards to this, because even from a selfish point in regards to your relationship, your romantic relationship, you actually don't want your partner to be the be all and end all of everything inside your life. You don't want it that when you come home from work, you lay everything at the feet of your partner, and then now they have to do the emotional labor after they've been doing labor probably intensively for remuneration in order to live. You don't want to put your partner through that. And actually, that strain is one of the reasons why a lot of romantic relationships end up not fulfilling, and ultimately, I'm not saying that a relationship ending is a failure of relationship. Actually, I think that sometimes that is a healthy maturation and logical conclusion of a relationship. And not even conclusion, but I would say like a transformation, like it turns into something else afterwards. After a romantic relationship ends, it could be something else. Going back to like the idea of friendship, if you're able to spread the needs and wants of a person across community, so maybe your romantic partnership is also very efficient for your home life. Maybe if you rear children, you want that to be the case with your romantic partner. Go for it. And as a child or having a child, there are particular things and relationships that child is going to have with people outside of their parents that actually is extremely helpful and very necessary to their development. They're not going to want to come to you with everything, and they shouldn't. You need to have safe people around you and a community around you, a village, in order to actually develop that child in a way that is conducive to living in a community. But because we put a lot of emphasis on romantic relationships, that being a product of course, patriarchy, because this heteronormative perspective towards relationships, romantic partnerships, also reinforces monogamy, apart with also religiosity. This is going everywhere, but like this patriarchy is reinforced through religion to create monogamy in this way where a man now has property of a woman, because initially in many different setups, that is what marriage was, a contractual agreement of property. The man owned and was responsible for that woman. So that is not only, of course, a demeaning, misogynist, and patriarchal standpoint, but also a very isolating one, because then therefore that not only the woman doesn't have any access to a community outside of it because it could be seen as adultery, but also now the man has limited himself to this nuclear family that limits the reach of which they can have.
Right.
I think that what we end up doing is that we put so much strain on our romantic partnerships that could be more efficiently spread across community in general.
Yeah. This is 100% a lot of what we're going to get at today. And the reason there are so many places you went is because it is connected to so many things. But in particular, I want to start by talking about singlism and the ways in which we view a person being single in society, and how that's connected to not just general social conventions about romance, but the economic system underlying it and the way that that's tied in with the social. I want to talk today about compulsory romance as a follow-up to the most recent video that I did about asexuality. We're going to get into more asexual and aromantic theory, more so on the latter today. And I want to thank everybody too for the positive response that the asexuality video received. The purpose of that video was to talk about not just our ace friends and talk about inclusion and talk about LGBTQIA plus people, but to talk about how the ways in which they are marginalized tell us a lot about the ways that all of us are imprisoned in the system. And it's a similar thing for any type of queerness and for any type of marginalization. You can first start by being more open-minded and inclusive of people, but to really understand the project of liberation and to really understand not just how to be there for ace people, but to be there for yourself, you've got to understand what it is that system is that causes this animosity to exist in the first place, and how that animosity is actually something that affects all of us. It's just that a lot of us have an easier time or choose to fit in better. And with asexuality, we talked about like hypersexualization, and we talked about hypersexuality as produced in media, and we talked about the normalization of sexually abusive encounters and rape culture. Today, I want to draw into the topic of romance because I've noticed something lately. I've noticed, and I've wondered if other people have felt the same way, that romance is for people a type of escape from capitalism. It's a way that under this system where we're all stressed, we're all working too hard, we're all trying to constantly upgrade ourselves, upgrade our surroundings, and make ourselves feel worthy of something more than the labor that we're stuck to. In order to avoid that sense of being stuck as a rat in the system, we are given by the system one way out, and that is find a partner, a romantic partner who loves you, who has the exact correct amount of sex with you, who is the exact proper amount of attracted to you in the proper ways for the proper qualities, and then have a nuclear family that you form with them and raise children with. All of that is, in the patriarchal standpoint, especially the way in which the male worker feels his own agency, builds his own little kingdom as he continues to be a peasant. But it's also just for every single person, for the woman or the person who is socialized as a woman, it is seen as a marker of your worth in society, that you are attractive enough to gain a romantic partner who is valuable within that system, and that you maintain your relationship with him, that you're a good partner with him, and that you then raise the little village. It is a powerful tool of capitalism. And all this emphasis that we place on dating shows and all this obsession that you can kind of see with love and romance and being chosen, all of that I think connects to this.
With what you're saying, to build off of it real quickly before ADHD takes me down another backway alley and beats it out of me, I fashion it as like romantic capitalism, like the economy of desirability. I was talking about this in regards to male centrism when another creator who was a devout and out man hater, insofar as like every other video was in reference to why she doesn't trust men. The creator was by the name of MJ Gray. Don't send hate, but MJ Gray. And she built this career. It was a white, progressive and aesthetic woman whose whole shtick on TikTok and everywhere else was trying to educate women to not get tethered to a man, not get married to a man. She herself said that she would never like to get married. And then a few months later, she also criticized other women for getting married. And then a few months later, she made a TikTok where she was announcing her engagement to a rich, wealthy man. And of course, the dissonance in it was obvious. And the reason why I made the claim that it isn't too confusing to me, apart from the fact that a lot of the things that she was spitting was basically what a lot of marginalized people would be talking about, intersectional feminism, but it wasn't very surprising to me that she would end up in a monogamous marriage type of scenario, because male centrism, whether you hate them or you're all about them, always talking about like a romantic partner or the possibility of a romantic partner, or you're constantly loathing about the lack of dating options, the lack of men, where are the good men, who's going to be the boys, all of these different things. When we talk about decentering men in this discussion, it's still very much centered around men. And that still ends up in a situation where we are looking at men as a means to fulfill desirability, to fulfill these different, to tick particular boxes in the criterion of commodification of romance. And when you were talking about is romance just another escape of capitalism, you're dead right. In fact, that's one of the reasons why a lot of romance ends up not working and not being satisfying, is because people are looking to romance to create this high or this inebriation, to be narcosed like you would any other drug, when to have a partner or to couple with someone or to, more importantly, love someone, not even romantically, but to love someone is labor. To love someone is to, at the expense of your own self, nourish someone else. And that could be very paradoxical at times, because one would wonder, if you love yourself, if you're sacrificing your own environment and making sure that the climate is just right and the temperature is good and your biome is all healthy, how can I do that if I am constantly sacrificing myself for someone else? Those things aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. But because you are trying to ascribe or fit your partnership in this box that we've created, or more so that we've inherited via romantic capitalism, via Dare Johns, via Love and Basketball, via all of these different forms of media, but more importantly, beyond that, via these institutions that were not made for a lot of us in mind, actually. Not even white people, actually. You too, like, probably will not get the type of, father being the patriarch of the household, woman with an apron on, barefoot inside the kitchen, pregnant, making you some gelatinous meal, putting it on a table, dog playing with the kid. You're probably not going to get that. You could barely afford a house right now, right? And I'm talking about white people too. And I feel for you all sometimes too, because like a lot of the time, like people will say, damn, if you white and also impoverished, if you also broke and white, then that means like you double failed. Right? But the truth is, what that criticism, while funny, what it misses is that it's a class thing too. It is very much inextricable from class.
Yeah.
And romantic capitalism is another instance of a glaring reminder that you aren't able to really occupy those spaces inside this institution that was not made for you in the first place.
Yeah, class is a really fascinating way to look at it. We've talked on this channel before about Sylvia Federici's book, The Caliban and the Witch, and the ways in which patriarchy develops and reasserts itself as part of a way to assert capitalist norms. As a way to sort of assert the norm of the woman's body being able to be controlled so that she can reproduce workers under capitalism. I think a great way to start the conversation about singleness and what single people go through is also looking at it as a class issue. And I want to start here actually with this video from TikTok from a content creator named Main Liema.
You are single and you feel like your life is harder and also more expensive because you are single. I just want to take a second to validate the heck out of you for that, because it's the truth. And I feel so gaslit by people in relationships so often whenever I talk about stuff like this. Usually it's one of two archetypes of people. Either people who are in relationships that aren't good and they are projecting that they like wish they were single. And so whenever a single person says anything, they're like, it's not all it's cracked up to be. Or the people who are in relationships but who never had to exist for an extended period of time in adulthood as a single person. Like people who went from their parents' house to college to maybe living with a roommate for a year or two to moving in with their partner. And they never had this extended amount of time that they were completely on their own, living alone, paying all their own bills, like responsible fully for themselves. And so they just don't know what they're talking about. I feel gaslit by them so frequently. And I just want to say that if you feel your life is harder because you are single, it's because it is. It's because our society is not set up for you to be single long-term in adulthood. Our systems and structures don't operate that way. Our tax code certainly doesn't operate that way. Are you kidding me? Our healthcare system, nothing is set up to support you in this single life.
I'm going to stop it there. There's a lot of places to go from it, right? And there's other TikToks, in fact, that I'll actually be interested in showing. But I feel like this is a really important way to categorize why it is that a lot of people complain about being single. In fact, a lot of the things that it comes down to are lived experiences of people who will often say things like, I want to be somebody's number one thing. I want to be the most important person in somebody's life. People who have relayed experiences of being in medical emergencies and having nobody who stays over with them for the night, and people who have been in long-term relationships who are married, not understanding that or not seeing that. So it can sometimes feel as though the single person is romance-centered just because they're brainwashed in some sort of way, because they're like, I want to be chosen, right? I want to be somebody's number one thing. And in some ways, there is a level of brainwashing going on, that a person will view themselves as less valuable, or as there being something wrong with them because they haven't been chosen, because they're not in a long-term relationship, view themselves as incomplete. At the same time, that's not just something that emerges from, the ideas. That's something that has material reality, that is specifically structured in a way that oppresses people who are ace and aromantic, because those are people who have already said, like, I've come to the conclusion that I'm actually not that into dating, or I'm not that into having sex, or whatever combination of those things on whatever spectrum. And that's a bold thing, and it takes a lot of pain and work to come to that realization, in part because it would be so much more advantageous to not admit, to not be that way, or not feel you're that way. It would be so much more advantageous to continue to try to play the game of desirability, because desirability is what gets you in the game for capital, right? I'll show this other TikTok really quickly, then I want to ask you sort of your thoughts. And there's some news stuff that we can get into with regards to that too. But this is Paris and Wenwa talking about seeing somebody go through the pains of what people are terming chronic singleness, right?
I just saw such a fascinating video of this woman being like, I don't really understand why I'm single. Like, I'm the whole package. I am attractive, and I can mount a TV, and I'm really smart, and I have all of these qualities going for me. And she literally spends a solid minute of this video talking about all of her qualities, which granted are phenomenal qualities. But she was like, I just don't really understand why I'm single, which fair point. I'm with her up until this point. But then she just starts being like, I'm just shocked that there are people out there who when they see my name on their phone, when they see me text them, they're not stopping everything that they're doing to text me back. And then she was like, there is no way that there is somebody else in your phone that is better than me, that's more interesting than me. And then she goes on this whole soliloquy about how she truly kind of regards herself as a rare breed. There's no way that you're gonna find somebody who's of her caliber. And it was fascinating listening to this, because I didn't know that there were people who genuinely had this thought process, that they were better than the vast majority of the people available in the dating market. Because the way I've always regarded it is people have what they want, and you can be perfect in your eyes, but if you're not what they want, then you're not gonna ever be perfect. Which to me is actually more comforting, because it means that somebody out there who thinks you are perfect. But it's also making me think about how the loneliness crisis, the singleness crisis happening amongst our generation is making people genuinely insane. It's making people be like, why am I single? Why am I single? Why am I single? And it's not because there's anything wrong with you. So then you just end up getting this whole inflated ego about the world is out to get me. And this really ends up leading to femcel incel ideology.
I feel like I'll stop it there, but I feel like there's interesting correlations, although I wouldn't have used some of the wording that she used, but there's interesting correlations in terms of what you just talked about with pink pill femcel content and male-centeredness. Also other conversations about, do you split the bill 50-50? Is he really the man for you if he's bisexual? These kinds of weird TikTok discourses. And also the fact we're in these massive economic crises where people are struggling to pay the bills, and people are also struggling to feel as if they are safe in general, in a social and economic sense,
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, just, what was that, 2 weeks ago, you had back-to-back black femicide. Councilman Fairfax killed his wife, Dr. Fairfax, because she was divorcing him. You, of course, had familicide, which is rare, relatively speaking. Black familicide, also more rare, in Louisiana, in Shreveport, where a father, after seemingly having a fine Easter with all of his kids, as he so bragged online, then took in hand to end their lives. So I have to address the nuance of advocating for love, a transformative property, what I deem to be God itself, and the sacrifices necessary to love, especially when I try to say that, especially to women and femme-presenting folks who have the disposition of loving their apex predator. You are in this dynamic where the person most responsible for your death, if not, nature, it is man. And you have to love them too, because they're your brothers, they're your fathers. But if you're cishet or if you're het, yeah, cishet too, then they're your partner and you have to share life with them. And I'm asking you to love them. At the same time, be extremely conscious and cautious of the fact that they are most likely the most likely person to kill you. And that's tough because, of course, the opposite is a loveless world where you resign not out of choice, but out of fear. That's not good. And you get this hostility. I call these pink cell forms and the pink cell groups, and to take it a step further, the 4B movement and whatnot, which again, I understand, but at the same time, a lot of these different movements have a lot of exclusionary practices that, I would not full-throatedly suggest everyone get involved with for those very reasons. Especially when you get into the radical stuff. You begin to realize that some women are more equal than others in these cases when you get to these movements. But a lot of what she's saying definitely resonates with me. There's a single tax. The world is not designed for single people. It is designed, of course, if we keep in mind that marriage mostly started out as a business. For the most part, you had kings of municipalities marrying off their daughters to other kings of municipalities, sons, and merging wealth.
Tribes, within a lot of tribal formations, bridal wealth, It
has mostly been, not everywhere, but it's mostly been a product of business union and efficacy and capitalism specifically. So when you see how that has matriculated from prehistory to now, you realize that a lot of these institutions, a lot of these policies and these practices and customs have created an inimical environment for people to be single. I know very well, and I mean women and femsim in the chat, like y'all let me know. I know how isolating of an experience it must be for my cousins, my female cousins. As soon as they hit around 22, 23, everybody's just starting to vie on your womb. They're just like putting your womb up for auction, putting your finger, your ring finger up for auction. Regularly, if you just happen to be single and a woman after the age at 23, more than likely you will have your family members saying, I can find a good man for you, especially in the Caribbean. Oh, I can find a good man for you. Hey, this is my cousin. You want her? It's a very demeaning experience, especially if you don't have any say in the matter. Like what if you don't want to be? What if I chemically, for some reason, I've been endowed with the chemicals that have me in this predilection for not wanting to be around people much. Now you have compulsive or heteronormativity and compulsive coupling in this case, where you got to be with someone now and you don't really want to. You would have been fine without them, but now I got to share space. God forbid now I have to have a child for them. And now I'm risking my lives all because of this archaic idea of, union that wasn't necessarily predicated upon what we deem it to be, which is love now, for the majority of the time. And then it brings us to a very uncomfortable question for anybody that is coupled. It's just like, especially progressives for, inside the stream right now. Could you couple ethically, knowing what we know? I'm cishet, and I am married. I have a kid, and these are difficult conversations and ruminations that I had to have in order to reconcile with the reality of not only what I'm choosing for a family and the way that I'm engaged with, because the more that you buy into these systems, the more that they take from you. So the more that you resemble that nuclear family, the more people are going to expect you to act that way and to present that way. So as a dad, it's expected that I present as dad. And that also means not being hot. And I rebuke that. No, I can have my shirt off and go to the beach and that be fine. No, I can wear short shorts, hoochie daddies, if you will. It is hot and I live in the Caribbean. I will not cease to be who I am because I've now hit these qualifiers of what you deem to be dad now. But because you are that, you then have people projecting on the rest of it. They're filling in your sentences for you. So okay, dad, and therefore everything else after that. Okay, wife, that means that you have to have a child soon. And after you have the first child, you have to have the next child before you even really, finish with postpartum. And then after that, you got to get a house, because now you got to put them in something. And after you get a house, like you get, so like before you know it, you're living your life for something else.
Yes. Which is the thing, right? I mean, that's what societies are formulated on. These things are based off of social rules. And those social rules evolve over time. Yeah. That's why you see, institutions of marriage and trading the wife and like different traditions around that are often like stigmatized in certain ways that can be overly damning of like, ancient indigenous peoples that like do not give as much credit to, for instance, indigenous women of those eras for their creativity in handling that, for how much this, sometimes there is a perspective that we have, like we're so advanced now. And like one of the greater points is that like what we have now is just a new version of a lot of these things that is specifically tailored towards a global capitalist system. It's specifically tailored towards our alienation under a system, our submitting of our time, our energy, our bodies, our labor, our minds towards producing profit. And because of that, these systems that tend to develop in societies are now organized in this particular way of, okay, well, in our societies, you marry, you make sure you have kids, you make sure, the money should go a specific way, the mother should stay more so in the house. All of these things that you hear MAGA sort of echo are the underlying undercurrents of a system that is currently in a bit of a flux as it goes through international crises, right? And I want to get back to the topic of singlism, just because I do feel like I'm not saying you can.
No, I will take it. No, I will though. But like, yeah, please keep going.
But like, I wanted to go back, in the spirit of talking about exclusion and ace theory. In the last video, we talked about asexuality and ace theory from Sherronda J. Brown and their book, Refusing Compulsory Sexuality. And we have some more quotes from Brown about singlism, which they describe as prejudice against single people, in which singles are discriminated against by both partnered people and social institutions, including the workplace, housing, and healthcare, and how singlism and acephobia often overlap because asexuals are more likely to be single than allosexuals. That can look like unpartnered people being stereotyped as immature, non-functional, or unproductive members of society, which are stigmas that are also frequently attached to asexual. There's someone in the chat who has been giving numerous examples. Born Liberated Empathetic World, talking about, for instance, the ways in which having a friend life when you're in your 30s or when you're a grown adult, out of college, in the workplace, becomes harder and harder, in part because if you don't have a partner, you sometimes don't even get invited because it's thought you'd bring a plus one. You're excluded because you don't want to be made the third wheel, or they don't want to have somebody be a third wheel. Or there's a lot of things that they just refuse to relate to you on or can't relate to you on. All of these things are manifestations of people buying into this system, buying into society, right? And buying into something that has been socially mandated on us in many different systems across generations. Ultimately, even with this, and Shakespeare made a fantastic video essay about heteropessimism and Sabrina Carpenter, even when these relationships are ones that people will go to you and complain about, it'll be men going to you talking about the old ball and chain, right? Traditionally, or women,
and they bond. And they bond over it. Like that's a really big point. Like misogyny in this case, even to a person that you, out of your own volition, have tethered yourself to, is a pastime, is a male pastime. How many shows the predication, the premise of it is my cunt wife. Waiting for her to die. I can't wait for you to. It's really a bonding practice, and who the target audience for that for is because there's a guy out there, there's a prototype of a guy out there that his whole personality and his union with other men is the shared misogyny of degrading women. So they commiserate over their wives, and that's how they get closer to one another. Right. And it's a very sad thing because now you see how that works across not only just white folks do it, but in other races they do this as well. And you hear it in hip hop because that's the way that they describe women oftentimes is this very degrading, very violent at sometimes. Even when they're trying to be passionate about them, they're, I'm cracking this one, I'm hitting this one, I'm pushing dick up in her belly. I'm just all right, you sound like Jack the Ripper. You sound like you're stabbing up y'all them. And literally they make bars about stabbing the gal them, you know.
Right.
Even in our culture, like the way how we make songs in dancehall and like in reggaeton and dembow, sorry.
Dembo.
I mean, our dances, while mind you, that's culture. At the same time, we call it juk. You know, we say you're juking, or like y'all more so are familiar with Jamaicans saying what word do they say? We say juk, but they say dagger, right? Dagger is a blade. The juk is the action of stabbing. We say, if I juk you, like I'm stabbing you. The ways in which we bond with one another and our culture is deeply invested in this shared hatred of women. So even to add that to the attack on single folk, we would be remiss to also note that if there is an attack on single folk, it's a targeted heat seeker missile specifically towards women and femme presenting folks. Everybody else is kind of a casualty of war, but specifically single women and femmes is almost blasphemous in particular cultures. To be unattended to as a single woman or femme in certain cultures could get you persecuted. And that's an important part because to be a man, like I could still have an identity if I'm single to an extent. Like
there's categories that you can get put. Oh, he's a Giannis, you know, he's a ladies' man, you know, like.
But that adduces to my perceived masculinity in a misogynist world. So like in a cishet binary, I get to have this identity, and my wife doesn't. For instance, in fact, like it would be seen as being unmotherly to seek an identity outside of her child or outside of her home. Like, why are you always outside? Ain't you got a man? What you doing outside? That happens.
Yeah.
That's a conversation. Like a random stranger could use that as a way to also get access to a woman. Go and say, you ain't got no man. Why you around here just walking about looking this fine and all this other shit?
Right.
What if you just wanted to be outside? But you can't because like that is a commentary. To be single outside is to be dangerous. That means you're unattended and therefore someone else can seek to attend to you.
Which would then be your fault because why are you alone?
Exactly.
And this is a great undercurrent to talk about too, this kind of hetero pessimist and then how that intertwines with femcel or pink pill ideology problem, right? Whether it's Sabrina Carpenter's whole album being about like, oh man, they treat me badly.
Man's best friend.
But man's best friend, you know, how men, if only you could communicate. Wow. You know, like while also still having this emphasis on like, I'm just trying to find the one. Like, I want to find my man. I just wish the men were not so terrible, but I want to find one. It's like, okay, what's the logic there? Or this is where I'm about to unleash a demon.
Okay.
I'm about to unleash a take into this world that now, once I do it, I don't know if we can go back. But like when it came to the Megan Thee Stallion thing,
I was waiting for that.
A lot of the conversation was very understandably, especially knowing what Megan has gone through, about, you know, first of all, like, how could Klay Thompson do that? Shitting on Klay Thompson. I'm very pro shitting on Klay Thompson, right?
As a Bahamian myself, I am also pro shitting on Klay Thompson at times.
And I've been a fan of Megan's music. I think she seems like a wonderful person. I've actually met technically Megan Thee Stallion once at a meet and greet. Cool. She seems like a wonderful person, right? I don't know if I was the only person. So you guys tell me, was I the only person when she was starting to post pictures with Klay Thompson and talk about how happy she was with him and putting out a song that was about my man, my baby, my baby, my baby? Was I the only person to be like, Klay Thompson? What's going on here? And it took very simple Google searches to figure out Klay Thompson has been a serial cheater up until meeting Megan Thee Stallion. He's also a rich and famous basketball player, not exactly the archetype that you wouldn't associate with that kind of behavior. And they were dating for a short period of time. And then they started moving in together. And Megan Thee Stallion's rebranding is like, I'm in a relationship and I'm happy and I want to share this with the world. And I'm not saying there's something morally wrong about that, but I'm also saying that there is something to this kind of romantic compulsion that misleads women or like pressures women into being in relationships with men, despite the fact that they have clocked already all these negative things about the patriarchy and about men and about romance itself. And despite the fact that they might be the first person to tell you got to love yourself. But then at the same time, there's so much glory to the idea of finding the man and domesticating the man that I do think is worthy of having a conversation if people were able to have it in a responsible way that doesn't demonize Megan Thee Stallion, or they talk about her bringing it upon herself. Does that make sense?
So there is this brand of pick-meism, not to call Megan a pick-me, but there's this brand of pick-meism where you feel like you're the exception to the rule because of your desirability. So there are different lies that we tell ourselves to justify the reality that we want. And we can very well see a pattern, a history, and ignore that. And we can justify the reasons to course correct in a way that it still ends up with what we have. So that could be true. And I think that folks that are trying to make the conclusion, because I see in Charleston White say something to the effect of, not only Charleston White, but DJ Cacademics, who's regrettably Jamaican, say that Megan should have seen this coming because of these different intersections. Athletes are notorious infidelities. Athletes are notorious for being infidelity. Rappers the same way. But it's very interesting to put the onus on the cheated on to perceive they're cheating, because it kind of takes away from the accountability towards the cheater.
Mm-hmm.
I also saw one of the points that I've made is that why people had such a parasocial pain in seeing Megan cheated on at this on scale is not that they saw themselves in Megan, but more importantly that they didn't see themselves in Megan. And that's why it was so scary to a lot of different women who felt as though, damn, if he could do that to Megan, then what is preventing my partner from cheating on me? Same way with Beyonce. When it was revealed that Jay-Z had cheated on Beyonce, they were just like, you cheat on Beyonce.
Right. There's so much emphasis on that, as if
status and desirability.
A man doesn't, a person doesn't cheat because there's something wrong with their partner. Right.
The character of the cheater is the reason for the cheating.
Right. Because that's the thing. And like somebody just pointed out in the chat, love Sierra Anastasia, it reveals the lie that women can prevent a man cheating. Yeah. There's a lot of emphasis on like, I'm going to look as good as XYZ and I'm going to act this good, and Megan can cook and Megan can dance and Megan has money. I can be all of these things. And we should try to be all these things as, women in patriarchy, right? This idea. So when Klay Thompson then cheats on her, there's something that happens viscerally in people where it's like a panic, because it's like, wait, my values are a little bit threatened because this was the idea. She was supposed to be embodying the ideal that I'm chasing after, and yet she's suffering from the same things that I've suffered from, and she does. And like, now where do we go from that, right? And that's the thing. It's not about Megan having fault in the situation or about Megan having some sort of moral failure. It's about us not having the range to have a conversation about cheating without ultimately reinforcing patriarchal ideas of how to date, how to look, and what it means to succeed in life, right? And because of that, we end up in these traps over and over again, which that's kind of part of life too, right? We are trying to change the system. We understand the problems, but we're always going to make mistakes, or we're always going to end up in bad and difficult situations that are not our fault, and vice versa, right? At the same time, how do we respond whenever there's a cheating scandal? We think we're doing the big thing. We think we're dunking on the man and we're showing him, and we're actually going at the patriarchy in some way by clowning a man. But in actuality, in some ways, we're re-perpetuating the very ideas that makes this man the way that the man is. The idea that a woman like Megan Thee Stallion, in that position with the attributes that she's been assigned, she's got to be the ideal for how you're supposed to be. And the idea that a man like Klay Thompson put himself in that position because he is embodying what a man's supposed to be, and then he just messed up somehow. Oh, what happened? As if all of this doesn't happen. Klay Thompson doesn't get in this position, in part because he's lived an entirely selfish life, raised in a Nepo baby situation, dedicating his entire life to a sport and being glazed endlessly for years and years and years of his life, and given tons of millions of dollars because he is good at a sport. And all these social systems that encourage men to be lascivious, to be promiscuous, so to speak, and they make fun of men for being whipped. They emphasize what the idea of a baddie is and what the idea is of a perfect woman that you should have. And also this idea that once you're in a relationship, you should know that you're in the right one because you just feel it and that completes your life and you experience this happiness. And so then Klay Thompson is the embodiment of everything. He's doing exactly what the system says he's supposed to do. He wasn't feeling that happiness that the mythos was telling him because he is pursuing the capital. He is doing the role. And if he's not feeling that perfect happiness, then he is entitled as a person in his position to cheat. So we can talk a big game about how bad of a person he is, but we're really just playing another game wherein we're pretending to eschew the system, but we're actually just being individualist all over again and not questioning the system itself. Is this getting too much?
No, I get what you mean. I think infidelity is a blind spot for like quite a bit of different demographics. And I think clowning him is a nostrum, of course, a placebo to...
I'm not against clowning him, by the way.
Yeah,
Just to be fair, I have participated in it.
I made a whole video on it, so I mean, like, I can't take the high horse now. But I do think it's a nostrum, to a placebo to numb the pain associated with it, parasocially and for the person themselves. It can seem like that, and I think that like a lot of the times, like you hear about the get back that people that are cheated on get, whether it be self-development or, you know, having a bunch of casual sex in order to numb it. All of those different things are nostrums. They're placebos because you have to go through it in order to get around it and to circumvent it, because there's a healing that you need to get from cheating. But I think that, you know, there's also like some other niche drama in regards to the one streamer. I forgot his name. He's an Asian streamer. He was like a big part of the chat. Is going to tell me in a second. Recently it was shown that he was a big it guy, if there was ever a thing. Yeah, Sakuno, is that? Yeah, Sakuno. Yeah, big up yourself, Joe, and Babila, everybody else, basically. He was this big streamer that came up in the pandemic, and he attracted a lot of the streaming community and women at large because he performed this kind of docile if I'm doing this right, I don't know if I'm doing it right, but he kind of played this inept guy in the dating world role, all for him to be revealed to have been having numerous girlfriends all around the world, and he was not inept at dating. He was actually very sophisticated, and he was engineering a fantasy for the women that he was dating, and he was puppeteering all of them around. And it actually is interesting to see both of these things happen around the same time, because I think that happened about, I want to say 3 weeks ago, and then Megan happened about last week ago. And it goes to show that, and this is happening across different races and different niches, and it shows that this is a human scenario, and it shows just how far romantic capitalism and desirability is stretches for, and how far it reaches. This isn't unique to Megan. Nothing about Megan is exempt from desirability politics and romantic capitalism as an industry. And desirability won't save you. And I think that's like the really big part about all of this, is that there's no, and I mean desirability in many different ways. Also, like respectability is a form of desirability. Right. You know, because as Black folks, Black men specifically, we've always been told, you know, pull your pants up, get a low cut, speak eloquently and articulate. If you wear this, if you do that, if you go to this school, if you go outside at just the right time, then maybe you could evade racism. And no, like you will still endure all of the ire of a systemic force of anti-Blackness and racism. It doesn't matter how proper I speak, what I wear, what garments cover my body, it does not matter. They are still going to ascribe animalistic features to you. And that also goes for misogyny. As a woman or femme, It does not matter if you have no sex with men and then you find your husband and then now you only have sex with him. And if you have sex with a bunch of men and then you find a man, and there's no right way to do this. And you will still be slut shamed or called frigid, depending on which configuration you choose. So just live for you. If there's any advice to be gained for that. If you want to be sexually precarious and precocious and go about, have it, be safe. But don't do it because you think that it's going to get you access to a particular type of person or get you at a higher tier on the shelf in the romantic capitalist grocery store, because it's not.
Right.
And if they was going to knock you down and someone was going to lick you up off the floor anyway.
Right. I think one of the great examples of this that goes underclocked or underappreciated, going back to the conversation about ace folks and aromantic folks, right, is the ways in which people are stigmatized when they're ace and aromantic, and the characters and the ideas we have of somebody who doesn't have sex or who doesn't want to be with anyone. Right. And there's great work on this in Sherronda J. Brown's book as well about the aromantic villain. Brown talks about how in the Bond series in particular, there are villains that are constantly asexual. Okay. Rosa Klebb from Russia with Love. She's sadistic, cruel, and predatory. She oversees interrogation and torture of enemies. She has sexual encounters with men and women alike, but only to satisfy an itch and to use them to her advantage. She cares not for genuine human connection, only for amassing power, and use that power to control and harm others. Right. Then there's a character named Grant in the same book, who's explicitly described as a narcissist and asexual whose tolerance of pain is high. Okay. And he's an asexual serial killer, right? That is described as having these very typical serial killer experiences that are connected with how abnormal he is, as well as far as also him not having any interest in women sexually. And then there's Aura Goldfinger, very famous villain, who also is presented as being asexual, has no sexual interest in other people. Jill Masterson tells Bond that Goldfinger loves gold, really loves it like people love jewels or stamps or women. And then you have another example, Ernst Stavro Blomfeld from Thunderball. Never been known to see. This is a constant in these books, right? Bond is told by this one particular villain, Emilio Largo, Vargas does not drink, does not smoke, does not make love. What do you do, Vargas? Every man has his passion. Or there's the example of Dexter Morgan from the Dexter television series. I don't know if you've seen it. He's a serial killer who targets other serial killers, and he lacks understanding of human emotion, connection, and intimacy. The closest person to him is his adopted sister, who he says he's merely fond of. He's indifferent towards sex and romance, entering into a relationship only to maintain a public image of appearing to be normal. As the show progresses and he becomes more human, then he enters into sexual and romantic relationships because he feels drawn to the women. Okay, so he normalizes, and he as he normalizes more and more, now he's starting to have relationships with women and like actually connecting with them and wanting them, not just for like show. So all of this is actually very normalized and relates to the same way in which if you were to tell somebody, hey, I'm asexual, they might respond with like, oh, okay, especially folks of the older generation might be like, well, what's wrong with you? And there's also, as we talked about in the last video, a long history of the medical profession specifically pathologizing asexuality as there must be a chemical imbalance, there must be biologically something wrong with your brain, etc.
There's a creator by the name of Deshay, where he kicked a woman out because he found out that she was asexual. If I could summarize it, because I think it does speak. I think it does speak to what you're talking about, and maybe even bring up like a different aspect of it. He invited these women to play a game, I guess. Pop the Balloon is like an example of romantic capitalism, also a very big example, where he brought these ladies on stream. And then one of the ladies say that they're asexual, and they bumble around like what exactly that means. And one of them basically means that, that means that she don't fuck, which, mind you, not true.
Not even necessarily true.
not necessarily true. Ace folk, aero folk, like can very well still have sex. And then I think I'm not sure if it's Jay Cinco or Deshay, but the guys then kick the asexual person out. And I think that the subtext of that, even if it's done for theater, is still extremely interesting, because the premise then therefore is if you're not on the table for sexual conquest, then you have no business here. Right. As a woman or a femme presenting person, if you are here and you are not a opportunity for the conquest of flesh, then you can leave. There's really nothing. And I do think, as much as we may clutch pearls at that as a thing that someone could very well think, I do think a lot of people engage with the opposite gender in a cishet binary this very way. In fact, you hear this most of the time when, people make the take that, I don't believe that men and women could truly be friends because, like, what are you actually friends for? And the subtext is actually the self-report of that is that you purely see the opposite gender in a sexual manner as an opportunity for conquest, as an opportunity for sexual conquest. Because if you knew that people were fully articulated beings and sex is but a facet of that, then you would realize that, of course, men and women could be platonic friends. And not only that, but if you want to take it even into like the relationship anarchy aspect, which I think is another part of this that could be discussed. But y'all might even be able to, I know some people might have opinions on this, but like some people are mature enough to have sex with their friends. It shouldn't be that controversial of a take, but some people are mature enough to have sex with their friends, and the boundaries, if you choose to put them there, be respected. If there's something afterwards where you get in a romantic relationship with someone else, in a monogamous romantic relationship with someone else, it could be a scenario where you do have the maturity to navigate that. I have a friend of mine who's in kind of like a situationship, and she was asking me, because she knows I'm woke, and she was just like, do you think that in a situationship, she's involved with a man that started out as a friends with benefits type of thing, and it was mostly an understood sexual casual relationship, and feelings seem to have been introduced, but still to the point where they very much at the beginning outlined that they have the liberty to have sex with other people. And then feelings got introduced, but still the guy is having sex with other people. She is not. And she was just like, should I have a problem with the fact that he's able to have sex with other people and I don't want to, nor does he want me to? And I said, well, how does it make you feel? You're muted, right, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
And yeah, we like went over this and we were going back and forth with this, and she was like, he meets all my needs for the most part. He's there when I, want some dick. He's there when, I want to talk. We enjoy each other's time. And the fact that he has another partner does not mean that it infringes upon our relationship and our ability to enjoy each other. And I'm able to fulfill the other things in my life that I want, because my romantic needs are only so much, but I have other needs that I want. I want a career. And I mean, like, I feel, to be fair, I feel like she doesn't necessarily, she has a lot of interest outside of her romantic partnerships, right, that allow for her to want something else outside of it. And she's just like, but I feel like I'm not supposed to like this. I feel like I'm supposed to have a problem with this because of society. And I can't have a scenario where I agree, nor does he want me to. That was a problem for me too, because I was just like, okay, rules for thee, not for me type of thing. Right. And I said like that, because that speaks to the autonomy, and that means that he doesn't necessarily respect you as a fully autonomous being. Right. But she says that, of course, I don't really care to anyway. I said, yeah, but you should have the option to. And we got into it over that. And I maintain, and it's a very difficult place to be in when you're the friend and trying to tell like,
yeah. The problem there, it seems to have emerged from the fact that it's like there's a desire for you to do something. Like there's a desire for me to control you. That's not, that doesn't make sense. It's in a relationship, whether it's a friendship or romantic relationship, it's about like, I want to have this. I want to have, these are my boundaries. This is what I am willing to have and what I'm not willing to have, right? I can't list as one of my boundaries that I want you to stop thinking about having sex with other people. That's not a boundary. That's me trying to control your brain, right? Mm-hmm. Likewise, especially if it's I can have these feelings and I can pursue these feelings, I don't want you to. First of all, there's an inequity. That's not this, rules for me, not for thee. Also, what do you mean you want to control what I do? Like, if that's, why should that affect, you know what I mean? Like what you get out of this relationship, right? Obviously, everybody works out what they can work out, and you can't tell a person ultimately what they want to do with their life because they won't listen to you anyway. But a lot of this does still go back to things being normalized and things being seen as okay and things being ultimately acceptable on behalf of the fact that it falls in line with the idea of we're in a romantic relationship, we fit certain norms, I fit certain norms, you fit certain norms, right? In certain cases with a situation like that, I'm fitting the norm as a man because I'm in a relationship, but also I'm pursuing my biological male urge to have sex with multiple people, and you can't tie me down because I'm a man. That's not real. We often just don't. Sometimes when we get into these conversations about labels, even that can sometimes eschew like a conversation about how creative people are and how people find creative ways to live their own lives and to deal with whatever has been put in front of them. And on that note, it's like, whether or not you call yourself something, are you in an equitable situation? Are you being looked out for? Are you being respected for your own agency? Are you being respected for being able to exist in the world as you want to exist? And are those desires of what you want to do, how you want to exist in the world, are they based off of something that you haven't deconstructed? Are they based off of wanting to be successful? It's like, well, even when it's like, I want a girl who's shorter than me, like by a lot, and I want her to be,
freshly shaven everywhere.
Freshly shaven. I want her to have long hair. I want to have a certain hair type. I want her to make a certain amount of money. And that's just what I want. And you can't tell me, why are you so mad about my desires? And it's like, I'm not mad, but like, are you going to think for a second about where that comes from and why that might be
preference.
The case? It's just a preference, It's the dating preferences conversation again.
Only have dated short stacked goblins your whole life. Do you want to finally admit that you might have more than just a preference?
Right. I mean, mythological creatures aside, regardless, yeah, it's a matter of, we sometimes have these desires and it's like, we don't even want to take a second to think about where do these desires come from. Oh, I don't know, and that's where the hetero-fatalism, hetero-pessimism comes in again, right? Oh, I just want to be with a man. Oh, I'm condemned to wanting to be with a man, to wanting to have a man who looks like Clay Thompson, or who looks like Chris Evans, or who looks like XYZ and also makes XYZ amount of money and also has XYZ interests and talks a certain way. And he is also heterosexual because I don't want to. And that's just the way I am. And it's like, no, you're not a thing. You are a dialectic. You are a constantly changing combination of all the life force of the universe. Okay, you're not just like a static object that exists one way
in a vacuum.
It's not to say you have to change for anybody, but you're also just pretending that you're something that you're not, which is static. And it gets deep. I will say that this also connects really interestingly with this TikTok, which is by a creator named Saint Jenny. And this was one of the TikToks that kind of springboards this conversation for me. Getting into, okay, well, what about if the ways that we think about romance don't actually make sense or don't make sense for a lot of people, and for the people who it doesn't make sense to, why is that the case, and what's normal and what's not normal, and why does it matter?
I was talking to my therapist and I asked her, what's the difference between platonic love and romantic love? Because I'm having a hard time understanding the difference between the two, except that romantic love, there's that physical attraction and intimacy. But other than that, like, they're the same thing to me. Obviously, romantic love has that commitment, but friendships could also have that commitment. When you go through a friendship breakup, it's nearly as bad as going through a romantic breakup. I see them as like pretty similar to each other. And then she asked me the question, if I don't really see that much of a difference but the physical attraction and the intimacy, then how do I view physical intimacy? And then I told her that I view physical intimacy like an activity. Like, it's an activity that you do with someone. Like, I view physical intimacy like if you were to go sparring for jujitsu. That's how I see physical intimacy.
Very intimate.
And then she told me, well, that's the thing though. You see it like that, but you don't see it as an act of love. But I'm like, our generation doesn't really act like it's an act of love. This is things that you see on TV or like maybe from our parents, but like this generation right now does not view physical intimacy as an act of love. Romantic love is a social construct. In our society, we view romantic love like it's the most important thing. And as a little girl, you're taught that one day you are going to find the one and you're going to live this happily ever after to sell us this nuclear family and keep this machine going. But other than that, like, I believe in love for sure. Like I believe in love. I believe in romantic love, but I don't view it higher than friendship. I see the love that I have for my romantic partner and my love that I have for my friends the same way. So how do you guys view romantic love?
I think this really hit for a lot of people in our chat, and I'm wondering how it hit for you, and also what your answer to St. Jenny's question at the end would have been.
So yeah, she made a lot of like amazing points in regards to the mythos that especially we indoctrinate young girls with, where I mean it's from biblical times, like women are made from the rib of man. There's this idea that you're not complete by yourself, and you're from the onset of your life put on this Zelda-esque quest for restoration as you were born. And restoration is you finding a man that you can attach yourselves to. Everything from Disney to Nickelodeon to your extra personal and interpersonal lives, you are reminded of the fact, or this idea that you are supposed to be tethered to someone else. I mean, Beauty and the Beast, every movie, especially animation, and keep in mind, like the target audience for them very early on were young kids. You're being groomed to be a partner to someone. And in that case alone, like there's an attack on single folk. But yet again, and I have to note that this is specifically the case for young girls and over time, women and femmes. Like specifically, the onus is placed on them to sacrifice their autonomy in order to be whole with, in a heteronormative society, a man.
Yeah.
And to not do that is sacrilege, and you will incur social penalties. The world, again, going back to your point, the world is not designed for single people, because just like houses in general, like to clean your own house, to cook at the same time, make sure that you're being a good person, you're getting 8 hours of sleep, you're working to sustain yourself, you have hobbies, hopefully, otherwise you're just, waking up to go back to work and then going back to sleep again. All of these things cannot be achieved alone, and if you are a single person, because everybody has this investment in their romantic relationships, as soon as you get into a romantic relationship or your friend gets in a romantic relationship, you lose a community member as a single person, because they will then put you on the back burner in sacrifice of their own romantic relationship, and you feel as though you're supposed to have that happen. Like, there's almost this virtue in doing that, in putting your romantic relationships first. And I've spoken to like some of my female friends had this scenario where they, without even telling me, kind of withdrew after I got engaged, and that sucks, because then you don't even have a choice in the matter. But then they just say, out of respect, I kind of had to, because I didn't want them to feel any way. I was just like, I don't think that wait, hold on, she got to be secure enough to like. If I have a female friend, how is it that like you taking it, but that is something that is a tacit rule, a girl code, if you will. So a lot of the time, there's supposed to be this like sacrificial honor of seppuku, or how do you pronounce it? I'm sorry. Seppuku?
Like Japanese ritual suicide? Yeah.
Yeah. Bushido type shit. Like what? It's my analogies be all over the place. It's okay. Keep going. So yeah, like it's supposed to be like this last act of seppuku to your relationship with your friends. Once your friend gets in a relationship that's romantic, they say, okay, well, that's the end, and I need to bow out gracefully because I cannot access this person, even if there was nothing romantic about it, and that really sucks. So going back to what she was saying, we're looking for satisfaction for fulfillment in places that are simply not going to have them. A lot of the time, even men, I feel this happens with a lot more than people don't realize. But a lot of men look for fulfillment, for healing, for restoration in sex. And oh man, it is a very painful thing, especially for not only the man, but the partner as well in sex, when a man just doesn't find it there. And then they interpret that as this is just the wrong sex. And you then have to go out looking for it elsewhere. And what you're looking for, you ain't gonna find it in between nobody's legs. Like you're just not going to.
It's in yourself. I mean, this is like what love is. Love is something you can't find because you only find it in yourself. This is also a conversation that, you know, you can get there, you can get mystical with it, you can get spiritual with it. But I'll talk a little bit about my own story and then we can kind of close out. I'm in a committed long-term relationship. I mentioned my partner earlier. My partner is also coworker, executive producer. And somebody in the chat mentioned experiencing limerence as part of this compulsion to be in relationships, right? And I have a limited understanding of what limerence means. So I'm just going to Google it really quickly before I say anything further.
Actually, let me refresh myself. Yeah, that's good.
Mental state of being madly in love or intensely infatuated when reciprocation of the feeling is uncertain. Oh, oh yeah, I definitely had that. And it was so interesting, I always sexed myself and sexuality myself as cishet. And in part, it was reinforced by this, like since I was in first grade experience of like, oh, I'm obsessed with this girl. Oh, I'm thinking about this girl. She doesn't like me back. She barely knows who I am. I've had that experience for so long. And when I started to, in 2024, really reflect on my own sexuality, and really reflect on some thoughts that I had that I didn't think were a big deal. Like, oh, actually, I'm really not that attached to gender. Like, I'm a man, but like, I really don't care that much about being a man or like my pronouns or things like that. And also like, oh, I think I may have experienced attraction to non-women, to men, to all these things that I just kind of put in the background of my cishet narrative. And being in community with and in relationships with queer people, which a lot of times that's who I was attracted to as I became more mature, would be, bisexual women. I would be like encouraged to go further in that. And the more that I did that, the more that it kind of became clear to me that limerence that I was experiencing was not with a person, but with the idea of what my life would be like if that person liked. And in particular, of what acceptance and what space in society I could take up. Because if this girl likes me, look at her and look at her friends and look at what kind of life she has and the way that she thinks. And she's so cool. And I would genuinely want to be friends with her too. So that must mean certain things about me. It must mean that I'm masculine enough, right? So that must mean that I fit the standard of what it means to be a man. And if I fit that, then I don't have to worry about getting beat up as much. And I can probably make more money. And also it's never rational. It's never just one specific thing. It's just an idea of happiness. It's just a stage, a place in which you picture yourself inhabiting and you think to yourself, that's where happiness is. That's where I'm going to be. And that stage is always shaped like capitalism. It's always shaped like patriarchy. It's always shaped like racism, right? It's always shaped in the way you've been socially conditioned and based off of the epigenetic trauma you've inherited from your parents, right? All these kinds of things, these factors that make you who you are and the environment what the environment is and makes both of those things intertwine, creates this idea in your head of something you have to pursue in order to be happy, in order to get where you are, or in order to get where you want to be, which you can't name. And then we've all had those experiences in life where you get the thing that you want. And it's, whoa, I have the thing that I want. And it's like, but why do I feel exactly the same? Well, clearly there must be something wrong with my partner. Clearly there must be something wrong with me. Clearly there must be something wrong with the school that I'm going to, the job that I'm going to, the place that I'm in, the thing that I look like, and not the fact that I was chasing a destination in the first place. And so this can sometimes be looked at as, basic self-love, self-help kind of rhetoric, but it's core to understanding Marxism as well. And core to understanding it's core to understanding revolution and liberation as well. Because for one, you're not a slave to your own desires. Your desires are not even fixed real things. They're just a dialectic that you're having with your own unhappiness. They're a conversation that you're having with your own lived experience. And because of that, you're always looking for the external. And what the external is telling you is always going to be whoever can pay to get that, whoever can pay for that billboard, right? Whoever can pay for that, whatever the hot thing is, whatever the socially conditioned thing is. And so I see so many times, right? Even just in general and leftist spaces or whatever, when we talk about like failures of leftists or failures of people who are in these spaces, you see sometimes that the same systems will reify themselves in people who think that they're liberated or think that they're revolutionaries. It's like, I'm a leftist, I'm XYZ, but then you find out like they have specific, phobias, specific bigotries, or they're living, if you get deeper, specific lifestyles that aren't really in accordance with the values that they're supposed to be, espousing or supposed to be trying to deconstruct. So when it comes to that, there's just no way that you can have a conversation about like relationships if you're, for one, still desiring, you're still wanting. It's always going to hold you back, because you're going to hold what you want in tension with your ability to actually think about who you are, or like actually think about how things are. You're going to want attention from women, so your ability to understand the patriarchy is always going to suck, because you want women to like you. You're going to want people to think that you're cool, so your ability to go against the grain and wear a mask in public, or say something, change the way that you talk to not offend certain specific groups, or not buy specific brands because you're boycotting. You're gonna go on Twitter, no, I think you guys are just judging. You know what I mean? Because you want to still be cool. All this stuff holds us back, and it's also quite normal, so it's hard to like judge a person. But if we leave those things unexamined, not only is that hurting our ability to recreate society and to build the better world, because we're not committing fully to that vision, it's also hurting our ability to grow. Because if I never had to take the time to be like, you know what, I gotta talk about queerness, I gotta think about queerness, I gotta think about patriarchy, I gotta challenge myself with these things, I would never have thought about what my experience of my crushes when I was in first grade was. So I'm not really even going to understand myself. So that's my big rant about that. And I don't know, what do you feel like you've had a similar experience?
No, that was healing for like a lot of different things. It's food for thought for a
Thank
lot
you.
of different things as well. I mean, Chad also agrees. It is great to see like all these different representations of love, which kind of shows that it does exist. Not just in the past or in some far-flung world, but right here. I mean, we have multitudes of different configurations of love. And I think love is a transformative and spiritual property that can be the thing that you pursue. I'm not extremely religious, but it's one of the things that keeps me grounded in love. Love and community are my God, like the idea that
That's what God is.
yeah, God is love. Like, I mean, it is in the Bible. And I think for me, in my own romantic relationships, I have regularly found, or I had to come to grips with the reality that what I'm looking for, I can't make this person my end, I should say. I can't expect this person can't expect this person to fix me or to fulfill me. It's not fair to them. I've found that a lot of the things that I desire, when you're talking about desire, like it made me actually think more about some Buddhist properties, and just like all desires is suffering, and to extinguish desire.
Yeah, I'm a Buddhist. It's kind of, that's not too far from,
like you have to follow the Eightfold Path, and I'm like when you do break it down, to desire is to yearn for something that you don't have. And we want what we can't have the most. And when you think about that, like that's the root of everything. Desirability is the root of all things. It's the same thing inside your video games. If you had everything at the beginning of the game, you wouldn't play it. And that kind of perplexes me, at the same time motivates me. And I think about the things that motivate me. And especially like what you were saying in regards to how much of what I do is in performance for the acceptance of other people. And I don't feel badly about that. I mean, I'm positive like a lot of what I do is definitely in service of other people. And I think that that's actually one of my I read this specifically in a book about Tony Hsieh, the guy that made Zappos, who ultimately ended up passing away. He had a lot of neurodivergence, but also his story is really indicative of how tortuous a life people we deem to be successful actually live. And he said that he's found that the most satisfaction and fulfillment that he's had in his life is pursuing the happiness of other people. And yeah, I definitely feel that. I've often felt that. But at the same time, I struggle with that because I then don't know if there's anything else that makes me happy. I mean, a lot of what I do on a regular basis is going through the motion. And I, especially as, like a progressive patriarch in this regard, I am very thankful that I am able to support my family. But then you do realize at the end of the day, it's very difficult, one, to do that without resentment. And it takes a lot of checking on a regular basis of myself, not to become despotic and not to become tyrannical, and to remember how I'm operating in this framework. Because again, the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. And I can't progressive patriarch ethically without falling down particular potholes. But also, men that adorn this patriarch aesthetic often tell themselves that they're doing it for a particular reason. And I have my why. Like, I mean, especially after, it's very easy to invest in the idea that, okay, well, once you have a child, like it puts you on a guidance.
Yeah.
And I get it because like it makes things very simple and you now have someone depending upon your life. So like now you have to be of service in that regard.
I have a hot take about that related to that, but
what do you think?
This is actually Nelly's hot take, the preface. So you can't disagree with it.
I agree. We stand Nelly.
Because she's always right. No, she's not always right, but she's always hitting things that I'm like, damn. She says that we think, and then I have a separate hot take too that's related to what I've kept on screen with Spacey AC. Okay, children. We think that, the parental motto is always, you'll understand when you have kids one day. Nothing can be greater than the love of a parent to a child, right? The mother's love for her child. She says it's the opposite. The child's love of the parent is the most powerful thing. Children love their parents more than parents love their children. And I agree with her because with exceptions, obviously, nothing is 100% universal, right? But you're 20, you get 25, 30, 35 years old and you're like, I want to have a kid in the world because I want to raise a child. I think that that's important. Oftentimes, what do people say? I want somebody that loves me unconditionally. It's very selfish and socialized reasons, right? And of course, many people will love their child out of that, despite that, through that, whatever. The child is born in the world. The first thing the child sees is you. Everything that you have in this world when you're born is fully reliant upon the people holding you right there. There's nothing. It's the universe. Children's love is the universe, right? And so sometimes, yeah, exactly what you're saying is true. The child relies on you. You can't, that kind of drive, I think people are like, you don't understand until you're in it, when you know that a person's 100% reliant on you. But I would also categorize that as love. And I think that also goes to show why and you've talked about this on your stream, why in so many cases children are constantly taking up for their parents or not severing relationships with their parents or not cutting off their parents, making excuses for their parents, following their parents. My mom is flawed, but my mom beat me, but my dad beat me, but he did it because he loved me, but he did all this stuff. But if a child at 12 years old puts makeup on and he's the wrong gender, get out of my house. The child doesn't have the capacity and when has the capacity, will still funnel love to the parent. So I think Nelly's hot take is really important there, and also speaks about love in this way that you're getting at in a really beautiful way. It's not something hierarchical. It's fundamentally anti-hierarchical because it is universal. It is life itself. And so why does a child love the parent more, or generally speaking, love the parent more? Because the parent is life itself. You don't have life if you don't have your parent. So I want you to continue, but that was my...
No, I think that is... I mean, it is very difficult to continue after this because now all I'm thinking about is I have to go and get back to my son. But
right. He loves you.
He does. And I mean, there's a very brief period. And again, I do want to preface this with like folks that that choose to be or are just child free. I absolutely and utterly respect that right, and I understand it, and it's a qualm that I grapple with on a regular basis. The more that we live in a moribund world that even though is the best time to be alive, doesn't really say much about being alive. But at the same time, and also having children is a very selfish endeavor, and I think it's important that we note that it is selfish on the parts of the parents. I mean, like, they did not ask to be here.
They didn't
And
ask to
now
be here. Yeah.
they did not, and that's why I think that, like, you have it's incumbent upon you as a parent to do your best to give the child the best life that you can. What was I going to say? So it's important. It's there's a brief period in a child's life that I get the privilege of being in right now where they do think that you're a superhero. And it definitely seems that way. And I mean, to see a child glow up in a way where, you know, it's genuine, it's authentic, because they haven't endured the socialization to the extent where the world has robbed them of that light and made them jaded. So when they see you and they genuinely can still believe in magic, you are magical to them. And it is an amazing feeling to feel magical to someone else. To be seen and to have someone be sanguine because they're seeing you. So when I walk in the door and then my son sees me and he's just like, his face is eclipsed with a smile. Yeah, man, that'll do it. That's good. I can live with that for the most part. But at the same time, what I was getting back to in regards to the benevolent patriarch is a lot of the time men end up priding themselves in their ability to provide. And that's it. Because like we've been taught that that's our ministry. That's the only thing that we're good for. And there's a resurgence to make sure that we go back to that. So I remember when men used to go to war, I build houses, fix cars, and all this other stuff. It's work. Like, you are valuable when you are working. The self-actualization part of you is repudiated by society. Anything that is about you is deemed zesty and sassy. And why are you so much involving yourself and preoccupied about yourself? It needs to be about everybody else. And I struggle with the idea that, like, I do derive a great deal of pleasure, again, from pursuing the happiness of others. But I then try to remember that I've also been socialized to do that anyway. So what do I like? And I couldn't tell you half the time. I really, I like food. I have to set aside time to play video games when not playing video games on stream. A lot of the time what I've been enjoying most of is silence and rest and reading.
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of scary to me because, you know, I think that I'm very much, we perform, you know, even if we're not performing, we perform. So I feel like we're on a lot of the time. And because like we're not celebrities, being on is being us. So that line blurs quite a bit. You know, I'm not an actor in a role right now that everybody knows me for. So nobody's going to ask me, hey, do the thing. No, they're going to ask me to just be me. And in fact, they're going to expect that I'm just being me. So I'm always on. So when I retreat, when I take, I'm an Aries born liberated, whatever that means. When I retreat into myself and I disrobe and I, you know, walk around because it's hot, chilling, like, and eating food, crumbs adorning my chest and watching Twin Peaks for the 20th time, that being my desire seems really interesting when everything you've been taught is to make as much utility out of the time that you have because your time is limited. Yeah. It's very interesting that, like, despite my time being limited, I really want to relax and read. And it seems like that is luxury when really it's required. Not only required, but it seems revolutionary, which is sad because it's something that you need. But yeah, that is that's enough for me.
No, I mean, first of all, thank you for sharing all of that. And, you know, we should wrap up. I do want you to hug your child.
It would be very ironic for me saying all of that.
Be like, I ain't trying to deal with you.
Thing is, he's probably going to watch with Rachel and he's not going to care at all that I'm here, but that's fine.
Hey, he's got good taste. But, you know, his father's a pretty great YouTuber as well.
Oh, man, get out of here. We're going to do the toxic, positive, masculine thing of, bro, I'm trying to get like you.
Bro, I'm trying to get like you, man. I'm trying to. Yeah, I find that our journeys, oftentimes, somebody, you know, Spacey AC in the chat made this comment about like the importance of the spiritual journey for the person themselves. We have it backwards, I think. You know, we do religion in the society as a socialized thing, and then we do our politics as like an individual idea thing. And it should be the opposite. Our religion, our spirituality should come from our own individual contemplation. We should be able to read the texts and think about them and then meditate and spend time with the universe alone in order to really get that sense, not just be told it or hit over the head with the Bible, right? And then likewise, we often get our politics from sitting around and reading a book and reading a book and reading a book and going online and seeing people talk and seeing a social media post and saying XYZ. No, your politics is supposed to be connected to what's going on right there, like with the guys out in the group over there, with the homeless folks in your local park. And I think that is what gets you to trying to have a more loving life. I mean, that's what this conversation, as much as it's been all over the place, has been about. It's about having love, and it's about what love is, we've talked about love is God, love is life, love is all these things. But one thing love isn't is one thing love isn't is limerence. One thing love isn't is desirability. One thing love isn't is you having a romantic partner. It just won't give you that. And I really appreciate aromantic and asexual theory for helping put to words what this is, because it allows us to have dimensions of this conversation that are usually harder to access when we're just talking about, man, people are so mean, or people are so mean to single people, or all of that. So, and I appreciate having you on. I'm going to stay on because I'm going to do a special segment with the chat, but I'm going to let you go in order to live an actual human life
and eat, because I've been fasting this entire time, which I don't always recommend.
That's not.
Signing off. Big up the Sangland. Appreciate the foreign land that came through. Y'all enjoy the Sang stream. I will see y'all later.
Yeah. Thank you. Peace out, foreign.